Alvin Fiddler has been listening in from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and he is the Grand Chief of the Nishnawbe Aski First Nation, which represents 49 First Nations in Northern Ontario. Grand Chief, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
So, sir, one of the things that we heard from Mark Miller is that First Nations don't want an arbitrary deadline, and he said that that deadline that was set by the federal government was actually an expression of commitment. When you heard the minister say that, what went through your mind?
Well, we have 14 communities in NAN that have been on this list for some time now, and all of them say that water is a priority for them. So I don't know which communities he was referring to, because communities like Nishnawbe, and even my own community of Musquat Dam has been on that list since 2004. Have been asking for their system to be fixed so that they can have access to clean, safe drinking water. So obviously, at least from NAN, from the 14 communities that are on this list, water is a priority right now, especially during this, while we're in the midst of this global pandemic.
Before we continue with reaction to what the minister had to say, Grand Chief, I wonder if you can remind Canadians who aren't necessarily paying that close attention, how many individuals in this country are affected by the fact that there isn't clean drinking water easily accessible to them, and what they have to go through every day?
Well, the Nishnawbe Aski Nation represents 49 communities, and when I began my term as Grand Chief roughly 5 years ago, I think we had 34 communities on the boil water advisory list. We are now down to 14, and 14 is still too high, for communities to be on that list. And some of them go back, way back, like Nishnawbe, since 1994. So communities have been waiting for a long, long time to have access to clean, safe drinking water. And today we're down to, as I said earlier, 14. And we're waiting for this government to give us the support and the resources that we need to eliminate the rest of the communities off that list.
We heard from the minister that the government has set aside $1.5 billion in spending to what they describe as help finish the job. They said $660 million over 6 years directly to First Nation reserves. Also $309 million for the long-term work that needs to be done, and that was delayed as a result of COVID, but also related to weather issues and the isolation of some of the communities. What do you think about the money that's been set aside?
Well, I mean, that's something we've been saying for a long time now, that you just don't build a plant in North Caribou Lake or in Nishnawbe and leave. You need to make sure that there are proper supports in the long term for capacity to be built in those communities for them to be able to run these systems in a way that they were designed to run. And I welcome those announcements today, but as I said, these are resources that we've been waiting for a long time, and I would hope that the work moving forward will be done in a collaborative way to make sure that the needs of the communities and what they've been telling us for a long time now are incorporated into this work, and to shape that into policy moving forward, so that the funding structures, for example, truly meet the needs of our communities in the long term.
The minister also said that since 2015, this federal government has done a lot. He said, we've made huge amounts of progress. He said hundreds and hundreds of water initiatives have been completed by this federal government. So he was saying essentially that the Prime Minister deserves acknowledgement for that. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think, we should be patting ourselves on the back once we eliminate all the communities from this list, and something that we're committed to doing. And I would hope that Minister Miller and the rest of the government, federal government, join us in that commitment that we need to make sure that all the communities that are currently on this list are off this list as quickly as possible.
If the Prime Minister, if you had his ear right now, what would you tell him? What is the urgency of the situation?
I would tell him not to it sounded like that when he made these comments a few weeks ago, that he was sort of walking back on his government's commitment to eliminate the communities that are on this list. In fact, we should be doubling down to make sure that the work gets done to fix these systems, to make sure that there's progress being made to give assurance to our communities that we are working hard to get them off this list. And as I said, especially during this pandemic, it's so important that all our communities have access to clean, safe drinking water. We've been telling them since March, to wash your hands, to disinfect your homes. And I was on a call yesterday where a doctor advised us that in order for us to maintain our health, we need to stay hydrated. We need to make sure that we have enough water to drink in a day. And that's very difficult in a community where there's no access to clean, safe drinking water.
Grand Chief, I want to thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Alvin Fiddler is the Grand Chief of Nishnawbe Aski Nation. He's joining us from Thunder Bay, Ontario.